Norway. November 2014. Scientists from the University of Oslo work on a new breakthrough in robotics, creating robots that are able to adapt and continue functioning even after losing a limb. The robots also know how to create new limbs with the use of a 3D printer and reapply them, effectively repairing themselves without the aid of a human being. This new technology is the first step in achieving what Hungarian scientist John von Neumann envisioned back in the 1940s: self-replicating robots.
John von Neumann was a mathematician that had an idea about self-replicating machines, where you send out a seed machine and that machine will seek out raw materials to construct a copy of itself, and then that will then send that machine out to replicate itself.
So 1 become 2, 2 become 4, and eventually these things would be able to explore the entire cosmos. Now, one theory is that extraterrestrial civilizations would build space probes like that, and that would be the quickest way to explore the entire universe.
The interesting question is going to be the extent to which part of that self-replication includes the memories and the learning that the first generation of robots engage with. So you'd want to make the robots as open to new experiences as we are, but at the same time be able also to pass on the experiences from any given generation to the next generation through self-replication. So I think that this could be a very important way in terms of space travel to go. I mean, I think the more interesting question from the standpoint of ourselves as human beings is the extent to which we remain part of that process.
Is it possible that we could create self-aware robots that are completely autonomous and send them off to explore the universe unassisted? And might these robots be able to self-replicate endlessly, using materials found on distant planets? Ancient astronaut theorists propose that extraterrestrial beings may have already achieved this technology.
It is entirely possible that an advanced civilization, and I'm saying far more advanced than we are on Earth, could actually develop this technology of self-replicating machines, and then could send artificially intelligent robots out into space as sentinels that scan a much vaster area than that civilization itself could go to with manned probes. It's something that probably is already very widely in use by a variety of extraterrestrial civilizations.
The von Neumann machines are an awesome idea that is reflected in ancient stories of extraterrestrials coming to Earth. In the ancient Egyptian tradition, we learn of these formless light beings that emerged from what they describe as the island of the egg and create civilization. It suggests that they're utilizing some kind of self-replicating robot that has the ability to utilize genetic forms, perhaps imported from the home planet, that can then be manifested on a new planet, in our case, Earth.
Is it possible that evidence of self-replicating robots can be found in ancient historical and religious texts, such as those concerning ancient Egypt? And if so, is mankind today merely tapping into knowledge that was available on Earth thousands of years ago? Knowledge that might have been brought here by extraterrestrial space travelers. According to some ancient astronaut theorists, the concept that extraterrestrial life forms may have first visited the Earth as machines or robots is not only likely, but logical. Located just 4 miles west of the Pentagon is the headquarters for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, better known as DARPA. Since 2002, DARPA has been investing hundreds of millions of dollars in its brain-machine interface program for the U.S. military. The technologies they are developing allow humans to control mechanical devices with their minds.
There are these brain-computer interfaces where we can implant electrodes in the brain. And for example, you can control a prosthetic limb by just using your thoughts with these brain-computer interfaces. The chip records activation in your brain. It sends that information to a computer, which then sends that to, let's say, a prosthetic limb to control it.
This is certainly a good way to extend lives when the brain is not the part that's failing, but it's the rest of the body that's failing. Because you can actually now imagine human sort of metal robotic cyborg combinations where your brain is now not just controlling maybe your biological body, but something artificial and man-made.
You give this technology another 50 years, and we will appear as God beings to a person living at the beginning of the 20th century. So let's now look back at the extraterrestrial gods of the ancient world. They must have had at least the level of technological sophistication that we are enjoying and experiencing today, probably even more advanced.
I think it's fascinating where we are in this moment in time, because what if one day we can create artificial human beings? And in fact, we are merely rediscovering what has happened already a long time ago.
As far as some ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, merging biology and technology is an important first step in becoming like our alien ancestors. But they believe the extraterrestrial beings that people have reported encountering on Earth may be merely avatars, vessels for intelligences that can move from one body to another.
What if they're digital beings or light beings? We have numerous stories that tell us that the god beings were originally light beings that could then phase into a physical flesh and blood form and then phase back into their light body form when they want to travel the stars. We hear the story of the Anunnaki, the divine lords of light of the Sumerian tradition, or the arrival of the Watchers, the lords of light who descended upon Mount Hermon.
The stories of Vishnu actually describe Vishnu having many manifestations of himself as other gods. He would come to our reality as a different god. He came to Earth many different times as many different people and had adventures and activities, and then he would go back into the heavens as Vishnu.
The aliens could be avatars. They can withstand all the rigors of outer space because they are part biological and part mechanical, but controlled by an alien consciousness in a different star system.
While the notion of a conscious being that can move from one body to another may sound far-fetched, humankind is working towards realizing this technology right now by attempting to map the human brain.
Whole brain emulation is the ability to create a carbon copy of the brain itself. Already, by slicing and dicing the brain of a fruit fly, we've been able to catalog all the connections of a fruit fly's brain up to 100,000 neurons. Think about that. Every single connection of the brain of a fruit fly mapped using computers by slicing and dicing the brain. Now, the human brain is much more complicated. 100 billion neurons, with each neuron connected to 10,000 other neurons. But in principle, that's also possible to create an exact copy of the brain to map every single neuron of the brain using transistors rather than neurons. And it would, in principle, be identical to who you are. It would have access to all your memories, all your dreams, all your foibles, all your mannerisms. It'll take, of course, decades to give you that kind of accuracy, but it is doable.
Chicago, Illinois, 2006. Scientists pioneer a stunning biomechanical advancement, a thought-controlled robotic arm. Outfitted with electrodes that connect to the nerves of the wearer, the prosthetic works just like an actual arm and hand, receiving signals from the brain and giving the user a functioning new limb. But as scientifically sophisticated as this is, ancient astronaut theorists point to a remarkably similar account in an ancient story from the British Isles.
Irish myth has a story about a divine physician called Diansect. He has herbs to heal every affliction of the human body and soul. And the people, whether they're wounded in battle or they're afflicted in childbirth or miscarriage or headaches or whatever the malady is, they will go to Diansect for healing.
Diansect is known as the physician of the gods, or he was the celebrated physician of the Tuatha De Danann, which are sort of a semi-divine early group of people in Irish lore.
According to Celtic tradition, the Tuatha De Danann were a race of supernatural beings that came to Ireland riding on dark clouds. Diansect was one of these otherworldly beings, and a physician who sometimes used his knowledge to treat humans. In the most famous account of his medical feats, the Irish god heals a king named Nuada, who becomes injured in battle.
During a heated battle, Nuada lost his arm. Because of this, he could no longer be king. Kings were supposed to be physically pure, according to the ideas of this time. So he had to surrender his kingship for a while, and during this time period, Diansect was the one who actually fashioned him an arm out of silver. So he became known as Nuada of the Silver Hand, or Nuada of the Silver Arm.
Is the story of Diansect a myth, as mainstream historians believe? Or might King Nuada's silver arm have actually been an advanced bionic machine, just like the ones being developed today? If so, is it possible that the Celtic god Diansect was, in fact, an extraterrestrial being?
According to this legend, Diansect replaced King Nuada's arm with a silver arm that was fully functional. So is it possible that what we have here is an account of some type of prosthetics that existed already way back in the past?
It would seem that these legends are talking about what are really pretty high-tech medical devices and knowledge, the kind of medical knowledge that we have today and has taken hundreds of years of expensive research to find. So it would seem that they had these devices in ancient times too. But where would they have gotten them? It would seem to have been from extraterrestrials.
Kansai Science City, Japan. At the Advanced Telecommunications Research Institute, Dr. Hiroshi Ishiguro and his team are developing a series of robots, artificial humans that are incredibly lifelike, both in their appearance and in their facial gestures.
When we are sitting, we never stop. Our eyes and head and body is slightly moving. So we have developed the mechanism to mimic that kind of human-like subconscious movement.
This robot, part of the Geminoid series, is designed to look identical to its maker. But what separates it from other robots of its type is the number of miniature motors called actuators used to mimic human expression. While most use 10 to 12, the latest Geminoids use over 50.
Inside the facial skin, this kind of the pneumatical actuator pulling or pushing the skin so that we can make facial expression.
The robot is programmed to mimic as closely as possible the movements a human makes while at rest. It responds spontaneously to being touched or when asked a question. It can also be remotely operated.
When this robot is operated, head movement is copied to this robot. Also, when the operator speaks something, the system automatically analyzes what he's saying and automatically generates a lip movement.
Yeah, I think the cafeteria closed too early.
Yeah, too early.
Yeah, it closed at 5:30.
While the Geminoid robots focus primarily on replicating facial expression, engineers at the University of Texas Human-Centered Robotics Lab have developed a robot named Dreamer that can perform an equally impressive series of sophisticated body movements.
We made Dreamer more human-like through the features and shapes and kind of dimensions of the human, and at the same time making the movements much more human-like by understanding and learning from the human. So one thing that makes unique the movement of Dreamers is what we call the whole body control.
Although Dreamer's torso rests on a wheeled base, a bipedal set of robotic legs are currently being developed, which will make Dreamer fully mobile within 2 years.
Ultimately, we want these machines to live 100 years unassisted, without any supervision whatsoever.
By combining the lifelike characteristics of androids, like those developed by Hiroshi Ishiguro, with the mobility of robots like Dreamer, scientists believe we might soon see a time when artificial humans will be virtually identical to the real thing.
We're going to be able to actually create very human-like robotic systems to the point that they are nearly indistinguishable, both in movement and in morphology.
If you look at something like the sort of entities that were dealt with in the movie Blade Runner, the kinds of Turing tests that were done there to try to spot the androids, I think that in principle, we could have androids passing a sophisticated version of the Turing test that would force the machine to think reflectively about its own consciousness, about its own past, about its own feelings. And I think that this should not be impossible to do, and in which case we should count these beings as human.
In the 21st century, robots are being programmed to do everything from performing surgery to driving a car. And humanoid robots are rapidly reaching a level of sophistication that was thought to exist only in science fiction. But what are the implications of creating robots that are increasingly intelligent and independent? In March of 2015, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak was quoted as saying, "Computers are going to take over from humans. The future is scary." Even Stephen Hawking and Tesla Motors founder Elon Musk have predicted that machines may soon surpass and ultimately replace humans.
Many scientists and thinkers have postulated that ultimately machines are going to take over the world. Computers are getting faster and more powerful. Ultimately, we will design machines that themselves design even better machines. If it gets smarter than us, we better watch out.